The arrival. Sarah Chen sighed as she pulled into her driveway, the weight of another monotonous day at the accounting firm settling on her shoulders. At 35, she'd fallen into a comfortable yet unfulfilling routine in the quiet suburb of Maplewood. As she stepped out of her car, the summer evening air thick with the scent of freshly cut grass, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing from her life. Little did she know that something was about to crash land in her backyard. Sarah had just settled onto her porch with a glass of wine when a blinding light streaked across the sky. Her heart raced as the object, clearly not a shooting star, arced downward and disappeared behind her house with a resounding thud. "What the hell?" she muttered, setting down her glass and cautiously making her way around the side of the house. As she rounded the corner, Sarah's jaw dropped. There, nestled in a smoking crater where her prized rose bushes once stood, was a sleek, iridescent pod about the size of a small car. Sarah approached slowly, her mind reeling. Was this some sort of government experiment? A hoax? Her questions were answered moments later when the pod's surface rippled like water and a figure emerged. The alien, for there was no other word to describe the being before her, stood nearly 7 feet tall. Its body was vaguely humanoid, with long, graceful limbs and skin that seemed to shift colors like an opal catching the light. Where a human face would be, the creature had a smooth, featureless oval with 3 glowing orbs arranged in a triangle. Sarah's fight-or-flight response kicked in, but curiosity won out over fear. She remained rooted to the spot as the alien turned its attention to her. "Greetings, Earth Dweller," a melodious voice echoed in Sarah's mind. "I am Zix 427 of the Luminary. My apologies for the unscheduled arrival." Sarah blinked, trying to process the fact that she was having a telepathic conversation with an extraterrestrial in her backyard. "I'm Sarah," she managed to say out loud. "Are you okay?" That looked like a rough landing. The alien's skin rippled with hues of blue and green. "Your concern is appreciated, Sarah. I am unharmed, though my vessel will require repairs before I can return home." As the initial shock wore off, Sarah's natural practicality took over. "Well, you can't just stay out here in the open. Someone's bound to notice a giant, color-changing alien hanging out in suburbia." Zix tilted their head, at least Sarah assumed it was their head, in what seemed like curiosity. "You would offer me shelter. Most species are not so welcoming to unexpected visitors." Sarah surprised herself with a chuckle. "Yeah, well, most species probably haven't had their lives turned upside down by an alien crash landing in their yard. Come on, let's get you inside before the neighbors start asking questions." As they made their way to the house, Sarah's mind raced with the implications of what was happening. She'd always believed there had to be life beyond Earth, but to have proof literally fall into her lap was beyond anything she could have imagined. Once inside, Zix's form seemed to contract slightly, adjusting to the confines of Sarah's modest living room. "Your dwelling is quaint," the alien observed, the colors of their skin now a soft, curious yellow. "Thanks, I think," Sarah replied, still trying to wrap her head around the situation. "So, Zix, what exactly brings you to Earth? I'm guessing this wasn't a planned trip." The alien's skin shimmered with what Sarah was beginning to recognize as embarrassment. "A navigational error, I'm afraid. I was en route to our outpost in the Andromeda Galaxy when my ship's quantum drive malfunctioned. Your planet was the nearest habitable world within range." Sarah nodded, as if discuss intergalactic travel was an everyday occurrence for her. "And how long do you think repairs will take?" Zix's body pulsed with a deep purple. "That is complicated. My species undergoes a cyclical renewal process, not unlike what you might call a mating season. I fear the onset of this cycle may have contributed to my navigation error." "Wait," Sarah said, holding up a hand. "Are you telling me you're about to go into alien heat or something?" The colors swirling across Zix's form became a vibrant mix of reds and pinks. A crude but not entirely inaccurate assessment. The process typically lasts one of your Earth months. During this time, My body will emit various forms of energy that could be problematic for your technology and ecosystem. Sarah collapsed onto her couch, running a hand through her hair. So let me get this straight. I've got an alien houseguest who's about to go through some kind of mating season that might wreak havoc on the entire neighborhood. Zix's form rippled in what Sarah interpreted as a shrug. I will do my best to contain the effects. But yes, that is essentially the situation. A laugh bubbled up from Sarah's chest, equal parts hysteria and exhilaration. Her boring, predictable life had just been turned on its head in the span of an hour. As she looked at the shimmering alien standing awkwardly in her living room, Sarah felt a spark of excitement she hadn't experienced in years. Well, Zix, she said with a grin, I guess we better start figuring out how to alien-proof the suburbs. As the sun set on Maplewood, casting a warm glow through Sarah's windows, neither human nor alien could have predicted the wild adventure that was about to unfold, one that would challenge their preconceptions, test the limits of human ingenuity, and just might change the course of interstellar relations forever. Cultural exchange. The next morning, Sarah awoke to the smell of something burning. She bolted upright, momentarily forgetting the events of the previous night, until she heard a melodic humming coming from her kitchen. With a groan, she stumbled out of bed and down the stairs. The scene that greeted her was both comical and alarming. Zix, their opalescent form now a swirl of apologetic blues and greens, stood amidst a chaos of pots, pans, and what appeared to be the smoldering remains of her toaster. Good morning, Sarah, Zix's voice echoed in her mind. I hope you don't mind, but I attempted to prepare a traditional luminary greeting meal to express my gratitude. I fear I may have misinterpreted the function of some of your cooking implements. Sarah couldn't help but laugh as she surveyed the damage. It's the thought that counts, Zix. But maybe we should stick to cereal for now. How about I teach you about Earth food? Over the next few hours, Sarah gave Zix a crash course in human cuisine. The alien was fascinated by the variety of textures and flavors, their skin rippling with excited purples and golds as they sampled everything from apples to zucchini. Your species derives sustenance from such a wide array of organic matter, Zix observed, currently a shade of impressed indigo. The luminary primarily absorb energy directly from our sun. Sarah paused, a spoonful of yogurt halfway to her mouth. Wait, you're photosynthetic. Zix's form shimmered in what Sarah was beginning to recognize as amusement. In a manner of speaking, yes, though our process is far more efficient than your plant life. It's one reason why our mating cycle can be so energetic. The reminder of Zix's impending alien heat sobered Sarah. Speaking of which, we should probably start preparing for that. But first, I need to go to work. Do you think you can stay out of trouble for a few hours? Zix's color shifted to a reassuring blue. I shall endeavor to remain inconspicuous. Perhaps I could use this time to study your dwelling and its contents. I'm quite curious about human technology. Sarah hesitated, images of Zix accidentally shorting out her entire house flashing through her mind. All right, but maybe stick to books for now. The TV and computer are off limits until I can show you how they work. As Sarah headed to work, her mind raced with the surreal nature of her situation. How was she supposed to focus on spreadsheets when she had an alien houseguest? The day dragged by, each minute feeling like an hour. When she finally returned home, Sarah half expected to find her house transformed into some sort of intergalactic portal. Instead, she found Zix exactly where she'd left them, surrounded by a fortress of books. Sarah, Zix's excitement radiated both visually and telepathically. Your repository of knowledge is fascinating. I've been particularly intrigued by your fictional narratives. The concept of imagining alternate realities for entertainment is not one we have on Luminara. Sarah smiled, dropping her bag and settling cross-legged on the floor next to Zix. We call that science fiction. Although I guess with you here, it's not so fictional anymore. As the evening wore on, Sarah and Zix exchanged stories about their respective worlds. Sarah learned that the Luminary were a peaceful, exploratory race with technology far beyond human understanding. In return, she did her best to explain the complexities of human society, from politics to pop culture. "Your species is so diverse in thought and culture," Zix marveled. "There form a swirl of contemplative blues and greens. Yet you manage to coexist and even thrive. It's quite remarkable." Sarah snorted. "We don't always coexist that well. But I guess we're making progress, slowly but surely." As night fell, Sarah couldn't stifle a yawn. Zix's colors shifted to a concerned lavender. "You require rest. I sometimes forget how much sleep your species needs." "Yeah, I should probably turn in," Sarah agreed, stretching as she stood. "What about you? Do luminary sleep?" Zix's form rippled in what Sarah had come to recognize as their version of a shrug. "We enter periods of low energy consumption, but not in the same way as humans. I shall use this time to continue my studies, if that's agreeable." Sarah nodded, heading towards the stairs. She paused at the bottom, turning back to Zix. "Hey, I just wanted to say, thanks for trusting me. I know this whole situation is crazy, but I'm glad you're here." Zix's entire form seemed to glow with a warm, golden light. "The gratitude is mine, Sarah. Your kindness and curiosity are a credit to your species. I look forward to learning more from you." As Sarah drifted off to sleep that night, her dreams were filled with swirling colors and distant stars. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of wonder and possibility that had been missing from her life. The next few days fell into a surprising routine. Sarah would go to work, her mind only half on her tasks as she wondered what Zix was up to. She'd return home to find the alien engrossed in a new aspect of human culture. One day it was music, the next art, then technology. Zix's curiosity was insatiable, and Sarah found herself seeing her own world through new eyes. She'd never considered how strange the concept of money might seem to a being who had no need for material possessions, or how arbitrary social customs like handshakes might appear. On Friday evening, as they sat in Sarah's backyard looking up at the stars, Zix's form began to pulse with an intensity Sarah hadn't seen before. The alien's usual opalescent sheen was now shot through with veins of electric blue and vibrant purple. "Zix," Sarah asked, concern evident in her voice, "are you okay?" The alien's response came slowly, as if they were having difficulty focusing. I believe it's starting, Sarah. The renewal cycle. I can feel the energy building within me." Sarah's heart raced. Despite their preparations over the past few days, she realized they had no idea what they were truly in for. "What can I do? How can I help?" Zix's form shimmered, the colors swirling faster now. "I'm not certain. This is usually a closely monitored process on my world. The energy release can be unpredictable." As if on cue, a bolt of what looked like lightning arced from Zix's body, striking Sarah's satellite dish. The entire neighborhood went dark as the power grid overloaded. In the sudden silence, broken only by the confused shouts of neighbors, Sarah took a deep breath. "Well," she said, trying to inject some humor into her voice, "I guess the alien proofing didn't quite work out." Zix's form pulsed with apologetic cues. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. I didn't anticipate the intensity." Sarah reached out, hesitating for a moment before gently placing her hand on what she assumed was Zix's shoulder. The alien's skin was warm and tingled against her palm, like touching a mild electric current. "Hey, it's okay," she said softly. "We'll figure this out. That's what humans do best, adapt and overcome." As they sat there in the darkness, the glow from Zix's pulsating form casting strange shadows across the yard, Sarah realized that her life had irreversibly changed. The boring, predictable existence she'd known was gone, replaced by something extraordinary and more than a little terrifying. But as she looked at Zix, this being from across the stars who had quite literally crashed into her life, Sarah felt a surge of determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever consequences Zix's mating season might bring, they would face them together. Little did Sarah know the true test of human ingenuity, and the strength of her newfound friendship with Zix was only just beginning. The mating season begins. The next morning, Sarah awoke to a world transformed. As she stepped outside, she gasped at the sight before her. Overnight, her once ordinary suburban street had become a technicolor wonderland. The grass sparkled with an iridescent sheen, trees pulsed with bioluminescent light, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly energy. "Zix," Sarah called out, her voice tinged with a mix of awe and apprehension. "What's going on?" The alien materialized beside her, their form now a constantly shifting kaleidoscope of vibrant hues. "I fear my energy emissions have interacted with your ecosystem in unexpected ways," Zix's voice echoed in Sarah's mind, sounding both apologetic and slightly disoriented. Before Sarah could respond, a shrill scream pierced the air. Mrs. Abernathy, her elderly neighbor, stood frozen on her porch, staring in horror at her prized petunias. The flowers, normally a gentle pink, were now the size of dinner plates and seemed to be singing. "Good morning, Mrs. Abernathy," Sarah called out, trying to sound casual. "Lovely day, isn't it?" The old woman's head snapped towards Sarah, her eyes wide. "Sarah Chen, what in heaven's name is happening? First the blackout last night, and now this." Sarah opened her mouth, scrambling for an explanation, when suddenly Mr. Rodriguez's sprinklers kicked on. Instead of water, however, they sprayed a fine mist that sparkled like liquid starlight. Within seconds, every plant it touched began to grow at an alarming rate. "Oh boy," Sarah muttered. She turned to Zix, whose form was pulsing with distressed purples and reds. "We need to do something. Fast." Over the next few hours, chaos reigned in Maplewood. Cars refused to start, instead hovering a few inches off the ground. Household appliances developed minds of their own, toasters declaring their sentience and refrigerators reciting Shakespeare. And through it all, the plant life continued its fantastical growth, turning manicured lawns into alien jungles. By midday, a crowd had gathered in the center of the neighborhood, a mix of confused, angry, and frightened residents, all demanding answers. Sarah stood before them, Zix hidden from view for the moment, trying to calm the growing panic. "Everyone, please," she shouted, raising her hands. "I know this is all very strange, but I promise you, we're working on a solution." "A solution to what exactly?" demanded Tom Baker, the neighborhood watch captain. "Chen, do you know something about all this?" Sarah took a deep breath, realizing the time for secrecy had passed. "Yes, I do. And I think it's time you all met someone." She turned, nodding to Zix. The alien stepped forward, their luminous form causing a collective gasp from the crowd. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then, predictably, pandemonium broke out. "It's an alien. We're being invaded. I knew the government was hiding something." "Quiet." Sarah's voice cut through the noise, startling even herself with its authority. "This is Zix. They're a visitor from another world, and they're not here to harm us. What's happening is, well, it's complicated." Over the next hour, Sarah and Zix explained the situation to the stunned residents of Maplewood. To Sarah's surprise, once the initial shock wore off, her neighbors' reactions ranged from fascinated to downright excited. "So let me get this straight," said Jess Gonzalez, a biology teacher at the local high school. "Your alien friend here is basically going through puberty, and it's causing all this." She gestured to the still-growing, now slightly phosphorescent plant life around them. Zix's form shimmered with what Sarah recognized as embarrassment. "A crude but not entirely inaccurate analogy," the alien admitted. "That's so cool," exclaimed Danny, Mrs. Abernathy's grandson. "Can you make our treehouse fly next?" Mrs. Abernathy swatted the boy's arm. "Daniel, this is serious." But even she couldn't quite hide the spark of wonder in her eyes as she gazed at the alien. As the initial fear subsided, the residents of Maplewood began to pepper Zix with questions. Where were they from? What was their world like? Did they have families? Pets? Zix answered as best they could, their form pulsing with pleased yellows and oranges at the humans' curiosity. However, the peaceful moment was shattered by the distant wail of sirens. Sarah's heart sank as she saw several black SUVs racing towards them, led by police cars and what looked suspiciously like military vehicles. "Oh no," she muttered. Turning to Zix, she said urgently, "We need to get you out of sight. Now." But before they could move, the vehicle screeched to a halt, and a dozen men in dark suits poured out, guns drawn. "Step away from the extraterrestrial," a voice boomed through a megaphone. "This is a matter of national security." Sarah felt a surge of protectiveness. Without thinking, she stepped in front of Zix, arms outstretched. To her amazement, her neighbors followed suit, forming the human barrier between the alien and the government agents. "Now hold on just a minute." Mrs. Abernathy's voice rang out, surprisingly strong for her age. "This here's our alien, and we won't have you carting them off to some secret lab." "Yeah," Danny chimed in. "Zix is cool. They made my Xbox levitate." The lead agent lowered his megaphone, clearly thrown by the unexpected resistance. "Ma'am, sir, you don't understand the situation." "Oh, I think we understand just fine." Tom Baker interrupted, his usual gruff demeanor softened by a hint of amusement. "Seems to me like you folks are the ones who don't know what's going on here." As the standoff continued, Sarah felt a gentle touch on her shoulder. She turned to see Zix, their form now a calm, determined blue. "Sarah," the alien's voice echoed in her mind. "Perhaps it's time for a more direct approach." Before Sarah could ask what they meant, Zix stepped forward, their body beginning to glow with an intensity that made everyone, even the armed agents, take a step back. "People of Earth," Zix's voice boomed, now audible to everyone present. "I come in peace, seeking only knowledge and understanding. I apologize for the disruption my presence has caused, but I assure you, I mean no harm." The alien's form pulsed with a mesmerizing light, and suddenly, every electronic device in the vicinity, phones, cameras, even the agent's communication equipment, flickered to life. On each screen appeared images, breathtaking vistas of alien worlds, advanced civilizations living in harmony, and the vastness of a universe teeming with life and possibility. "There is so much wonder in this universe," Zix continued, their voice filled with passion. "So much we could learn from each other. Will you meet my openness with fear and violence, or will you embrace the opportunity for a new era of understanding?" As the last echoes of Zix's words faded, a profound silence fell over the gathering. Sarah held her breath, her eyes darting between the awestruck faces of her neighbors and the conflicted expressions of the government agents. The lead agent lowered his gun slowly, then reached for his radio. "Stand down," he said quietly. "I repeat, stand down. This is first contact." A cheer erupted from the crowd of neighbors. Sarah felt tears pricking at her eyes as she watched the scene unfold. Humans and alien alike, coming together in a moment of shared wonder and hope. As the initial excitement began to settle, the lead agent approached Sarah and Zix, his demeanor now respectful, almost reverent. "We have a lot to discuss," he said. "But first, I think we need to address the more immediate effects of your visit." He gestured to the still-growing, increasingly fantastical plant life surrounding them. Sarah couldn't help but laugh. Even in this extraordinary moment, life found a way to remind them of the practical challenges ahead. "Well," she said, looking from Zix to her neighbors to the government agents, "I guess we've got some brainstorming to do." As the unlikely group began to discuss strategies for containing and studying the effects of Zix's energy emissions, Sarah felt a sense of purpose and excitement she hadn't experienced in years. The boring, predictable life she'd known was gone, replaced by something extraordinary. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Sarah knew one thing for certain: Life in Maplewood would never be the same again, and she couldn't wait to see what would happen next. Humanity's ingenuity. As the days passed, the effects of Zix's mating cycle continued to intensify. Maplewood had become a hotbed of scientific activity, with researchers from around the world flocking to study the unprecedented phenomena. The once quiet suburb now buzzed with a mix of scientific equipment, government vehicles, and an ever-growing array of alien-influenced flora and fauna. Sarah found herself at the center of it all, acting as a liaison between Zix, the scientific community, and the increasingly overwhelmed residents of Maplewood. Her accounting skills, once used for balancing books, were now being applied to coordinate resources and manage the chaotic influx of people and equipment. One morning, as Sarah sipped her coffee, which now sparkled and occasionally changed flavors mid-sip, she watched a team of botanists attempt to contain a particularly enthusiastic patch of singing sunflowers. "You know," she mused to Zix, who hovered nearby in a swirl of contemplative blues and greens, "for all the chaos, it's amazing how quickly people have adapted. A week ago, the idea of extraterrestrial life was just a theory. Now, Mrs. Abernathy is teaching her sentient rosebushes to play chess." Zix's form shimmered with what Sarah had come to recognize as amusement. "Your species' capacity for adaptation is truly remarkable. Though I fear my energy emissions are beginning to exceed even your ingenuity." As if on cue, a loud pop echoed from down the street, followed by a shower of multicolored sparks. Dr. Patel, the lead physicist on the containment team, came jogging up, his lab coat singed and smoking slightly. "We've got a problem," he panted. "The energy field is expanding faster than we can contain it. At this rate, it'll reach the city limits by nightfall." Sarah's mind raced. They'd been so focused on studying and containing the immediate effects, they hadn't considered the possibility of the phenomenon spreading beyond Maplewood. "Okay," she said, slipping into problem-solving mode. "We need ideas, and we need them fast. Dr. Patel, gather your team. Zix, can you give us any insight into how your people usually handle these energy bursts?" Zix's form pulsed with apologetic purples. "On my world, we have specialized chambers designed to absorb and redirect the excess energy. But constructing something similar here, with your level of technology—" "Wait a second," interrupted Danny, who had appointed himself Zix's unofficial human guide. The teenager's eyes lit up with excitement. "What if we don't need to contain the energy? What if we could use it instead?" Sarah raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Danny grinned, pulling out his tablet. "Look, I've been tracking the energy signatures with this app Dr. Patel's team developed. The frequencies are all over the place, but there's a pattern. What if we could tune into those frequencies and, I don't know, power stuff with them?" Dr. Patel's eyes widened. The boy might be onto something. If we could develop a way to harness this energy, we could power the entire eastern seaboard. Sarah finished, the implications dawning on her. "Zix, is this possible? Could your energy be safely converted into a power source we could use?" Zix's form shimmered with thoughtful golds and silvers. "In theory, yes, but the implementation would be challenging." Sarah smiled, a determined glint in her eye. "Well, challenging is what we do best. Let's get to work." Over the next 48 hours, Maplewood transformed into a hive of frenzied activity. Scientists, engineers, and even local hobbyists came together in an unprecedented collaborative effort. Sarah's living room became mission control, with whiteboards covered in complex equations and prototype designs. Danny and his friends set up a hackathon, developing software to predict and track the energy fluctuations. Mrs. Abernathy organized a team of gardeners to help manage the ever-growing alien plant life, which turned out to be excellent natural conductors for Zix's energy. Even Tom Baker, the initially skeptical neighborhood watch captain, got involved. His military background proved invaluable in coordinating the logistics of their rapidly expanding operation. As the deadline approached, Sarah stood in her backyard, watching as a makeshift array of antennas, modified solar panels, and what looked suspiciously like repurposed satellite dishes rose into the sky. The contraption was a bizarre mix of high-tech equipment and household items, held together in places by duct tape and sheer force of will. "Do you really think this will work?" she asked Dr. Patel, who was making some final adjustments to the central control panel. The scientist shrugged, a mix of exhaustion and excitement on his face. "Honestly, I have no idea. But that's the beauty of science. We're about to find out." As the sun began to set, casting an otherworldly glow through the shimmering energy field that now enveloped Maplewood, Sarah felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see Zix, their form pulsing with intense, swirling colors. "It's time," the alien's voice echoed in her mind. "The peak of the cycle is approaching." Sarah nodded, taking a deep breath. She raised her voice, addressing the gathered crowd of scientists, neighbors, and government officials. "All right, everyone. This is it. Whatever happens, I want you all to know that what we've accomplished here, together, is nothing short of miraculous. Let's make history." With a nod to Dr. Patel, Sarah pressed the activation button on the control panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low hum that quickly rose to a thunderous roar, the makeshift array came to life. Streams of multicolored energy began to flow from Zix's glowing form, arcing through the air and into the waiting receptors. The entire neighborhood lit up like a Christmas tree, household appliances whirring to life with newfound vigor. As the energy continued to build, Sarah held her breath, watching the readings on the control panel. Just when she thought the system might overload, something extraordinary happened. The energy streams began to stabilize, forming a beautiful, pulsating web of light that stretched as far as the eye could see. In the distance, Sarah could see the city skyline, once dark from their overloaded power grid, beginning to twinkle back to life. A cheer erupted from the crowd as the realization set in. They'd done it. They'd not only contained Zix's energy, but had successfully harnessed it, turning a potential disaster into a revolutionary power source. As the celebration continued around her, Sarah felt a gentle touch on her arm. She turned to see Zix, their form now a calm, satisfied blue. "Sarah," the alien's voice was filled with warmth, "I want you to know that what you and your people have accomplished here goes beyond anything I could have imagined. You've turned a biological imperative of my species into a force for progress and unity. It's beautiful." Sarah felt tears pricking at her eyes. "We couldn't have done it without you, Zix. You've changed everything. Our understanding of the universe, our technology, our way of life." As they stood together, watching the shimmering energy web light up the night sky, Sarah realized that this was just the beginning. The challenges they'd faced, the ingenuity they'd shown, the bonds they'd formed, all of it was opening the door to a future filled with unimaginable possibilities. The boring, predictable life she'd once known was gone forever. In its place was a world of wonder, discovery, and the promise of a new era of human-alien cooperation. And Sarah couldn't wait to see what would happen next. Unexpected symbiosis. In the weeks that followed the successful harnessing of Zix's energy, Maplewood became the epicenter of a global revolution. Scientists, world leaders, and curious onlookers flocked to the once quiet suburb, now dubbed the Alien Nexus by the media. Sarah found herself thrust into the role of unofficial ambassador, navigating the complex waters of interspecies diplomacy with a mix of her natural practicality and newly discovered leadership skills. One crisp autumn morning, Sarah stood on her front porch, sipping her now signature color-changing coffee, and marveled at the transformed landscape before her. The alien flora had been carefully cultivated and integrated with earth plants, creating breathtaking hybrid gardens that hummed with gentle bioluminescence. Solar panels infused with Zix's energy-absorbing technology glinted on every rooftop, making Maplewood entirely self-sufficient, and then some. "Remarkable, isn't it?" a familiar voice echoed in her mind. Zix materialized beside her, their form a serene swirl of satisfied blues and greens. Sarah nodded, a smile playing on her lips. Sometimes I still can't believe this is real. A month ago, I was just an accountant in a boring suburb. Now, she gestured to the bustling street, where humans and newly arrived alien diplomats mingled freely. Now you're a pivotal figure in Earth's entry into the galactic community, Six finished. Their form shimmered with what Sarah had come to recognize as pride. Before Sarah could respond, a sleek hover car, one of many technological leaps resulting from the human luminary collaboration, pulled up in front of her house. Dr. Paddle stepped out, his face alight with excitement. Sarah, Zix, you won't believe what we've discovered. He rushed up to them, tablet in hand. Remember how we thought Zix's mating cycle was just about energy release? Well, it's so much more than that. Take a look at these readings. Sarah and Zix leaned in, examining the complex graphs and data streams on the tablet. Even with her limited scientific knowledge, Sarah could see that something extraordinary was happening. The energy isn't just affecting our technology, Dr. Paddle explained breathlessly. It's altering the very fabric of space-time around Maplewood. We're seeing quantum fluctuations that could potentially open gateways to other dimensions, Zix finished, their form pulsing with intense purples and golds. Of course, the renewal cycle isn't just about reproduction for my species. It's how we explore and connect with the multiverse. Sarah's mind reeled at the implications. Are you saying we could potentially travel to other dimensions? Other universes? Dr. Patel nodded enthusiastically. Theoretically, yes, but we need to approach this carefully. The power we're dealing with here is beyond anything humanity has ever encountered. Over the next few days, Maplewood once again transformed into a hub of frenetic activity. Scientists from around the world worked alongside luminary experts. More of Zix's people had arrived, drawn by the energy signatures of their compatriots' mating cycle, to understand and harness this new discovery. Sarah found herself in the thick of it all, coordinating efforts between human and alien teams, managing resources, and trying to keep the ever-present government officials and media at bay. One evening, as she sat in her backyard watching a team of physicists calibrate what looked like a cross between a particle accelerator and a lava lamp, Sarah felt a familiar presence beside her. "You seem troubled," Zix observed, their colors a concerned mix of soft blues and lavenders. Sarah sighed, running a hand through her hair. "It's just, all of this is happening so fast. A part of me is thrilled, but another part is terrified. Are we ready for this? To step out into the multiverse?" Zix was quiet for a moment, their form shifting thoughtfully. "Readiness is a curious concept," they finally said. "No species is ever truly ready for the next great leap. But from what I've seen of humanity, your adaptability, your ingenuity, your capacity for wonder, I believe you are as prepared as any could be." Before Sarah could respond, a shout from the physicist team caught their attention. The strange device was humming to life, emitting a soft, pulsating glow. "It's working," Dr. Patel called out, his voice filled with awe. "We're detecting a quantum signature unlike anything we've ever seen." As the glow intensified, the air in front of the device seemed to ripple and fold in on itself. Slowly, a shimmering portal began to form, offering glimpses of a world beyond, alien landscapes, impossible colors, and the promise of unimaginable discoveries. The assembled crowd fell silent, the weight of the moment settling over them. This was it, the threshold of a new era for humanity. Sarah felt a gentle touch on her shoulder. She turned to see Mrs. Abernathy, the old woman's eyes glistening with tears of joy. "You know, dear," she said softly, "I've lived in Maplewood all my life. Always thought nothing exciting would ever happen here. How wonderfully wrong I was." Sarah smiled, feeling a lump form in her throat. She looked around at the faces of her neighbors, people she'd barely known a month ago, now united in this extraordinary moment. There was Danny, practically vibrating with excitement as he furiously typed on his tablet, probably already coding an app to track interdimensional travel. Tom Baker stood tall and proud, his initial skepticism replaced by a sense of wonder. Dr. Patel and his team of scientists were hugging each other, years of work culminating in this breakthrough. And there was Zix, their alien friend whose accidental arrival had set all of this in motion. The luminary's form pulsed with a rainbow of emotions, excitement, pride, and something that looked very much like love. As the portal stabilized, a hush fell over the crowd. Dr. Patel turned to Sarah, a question in his eyes. She realized with a start that everyone was looking to her for guidance. Sarah took a deep breath, straightening her shoulders. The accountant from a month ago would have balked at this responsibility. But she wasn't that person anymore. This new Sarah, friend to aliens, coordinator of interdimensional research, ambassador to the stars, was ready. "Well," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the night air, "I guess there's only one thing left to do." She turned to Zix, extending her hand. "Care to take a step into the unknown with me?" Zix's form shimmered with joy as they placed their alien appendage in Sarah's hand. "It would be my honor," they replied. Together, human and alien, they approached the portal. Behind them, the residents of Maplewood held their breath, witnesses to the dawn of a new age. As Sarah and Zix stood at the threshold of the universe, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Her boring, predictable life had been transformed into an adventure beyond her wildest dreams. And this, she realized, was only the beginning. With a shared look of excitement and determination, Sarah and Zix stepped forward, crossing the boundary between worlds. As they vanished into the shimmering portal, the cheers of their friends and neighbors echoed behind them, a fitting farewell to the old world and a jubilant welcome to the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. In that moment, on a once ordinary street in a once ordinary suburb, humanity took its first steps into a vast and wondrous multiverse. And it all began with an alien's mating season and the extraordinary adaptability of the human spirit. The end, or perhaps just the beginning.